you guys for coming. We're holding this press conference, frankly, just to, number one, mark a milestone in the appropriations process. In the last, really 12 weeks, but particularly when we get marked up 5, every single bill has been marked up through the full committee. We weren't able to do that last year. This was done this year. So everybody's had their opportunity for input. Number two, we're under no illusions that this is the final product. The reality is, this is a process. This is an important point in the process. We recognize the Senate has its own process. We're a little bit ahead of it. All 12 bills are out. So we've got to negotiate. We literally could go to conference now on the basis of what we've done. 4 across the full floor, which I have to really tip my hat to Majority Leader Steve Police and to Tom Whip. Tom Whip. That's what I think. Tom Whip. And Guy Reschenthaler, who's one of our appropriators. Because we've got a bigger margin to work with in our committee than they do on the floor. And the fact that they've gotten over 70% of the spending across the House floor now, between defense, once you get defense, get Calvin's bill, that's a biggie, that's over half, and then there's been 3 others in addition to that, Homeland Security, SFOX, State and Operations, and it's a pretty big deal. So anyway, with that, we want each cardinal to have an opportunity to say quickly what's in the bills. You can ask any questions you want. We look forward to sitting down at the appropriate time with our friends on the other side of the aisle and beginning a negotiation and finding a full government. That is
Thank you, Chairman Cole. Good morning, everyone. Congressman David Valeo, Chairman of the Legislative Branch Subcommittee. I know that the appropriations bill that I oversee is not one that most people at home pay a lot of attention to, but it is one that is critical to our ability to function as a body and to be able to legislate and also keep our constituents involved and informed in what we're doing here in the Capitol. The bill that we'll be voting on shortly supports the legislative branch as an essential branch of government and ensures the House is open to and work for the American people. I'm proud of the work of our committee has done this year to move these bills. All 12 appropriations bills off the out of committee is something that I don't think I've ever experienced or experienced in a long time. And so I'm pretty proud of the fact that we're going to get another bill done in the House floor. Our work on these bills reflects our commitment to funding the government responsibly and on time, and I really want to thank Chairman Cole for his leadership and guidance throughout this whole process. Honestly, I took over the left branch appropriations midstream, and jumping in the way I did, I will be able to do it without the support of the chairman and the former chairman. He's still not here yet, but it's something I'm really proud of. So thank you all for your help, and give it back to you, Chairman Cole.
We're sending you to the front line right now. So you're going to the back. With that, we're just going to move through in order of seniority on what everybody talk about their bills, and then everybody will be here available for the questions you might have specific to their bill. So the Dean of the House, the Chairman Emeritus of the Committee, Howard Rogers.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for your leadership that made this possible. We've got a chairman who knows how to run things and how to be good with a clock. So thank you for your leadership, Mr. Chairman. We're starting out this morning with a celebration on the committee. We know that people are looking toward Capitol Hill for the hope of better days ahead. And our progress on these bills signal our commitment to getting our fiscal house in order and protecting the interests of this great country. I'm proud to say that the Commerce Justice Science NASA bill accomplishes many things. One, it's very pro-law enforcement. It's pro-Second Amendment. It secures Americans' global competitiveness, not only here, but to the moon and beyond. It fights the flow of fentanyl and other deadly drugs from making their way from China and Mexico into all of our communities. And it puts an end administration's weaponization of the Department of Justice, it's clear that the bill, with regard to the FBI and ATF, they've lost their way, frankly, so we're putting them back in the right track. But let me be clear. We recognize the value of agents in the field. So we're requiring DOJ to concentrate on the issues impacting our community, like child exploitation, drug trafficking, protecting us against terrorism, and the like. And that's where our focus needs to be. And that's our goal across all of these subcommittees, refocusing on the issues that impact American families every single day. I applaud this committee for powering through this comprehensive bill and putting America's interests first. And now let me, Mr. Chairman, I guess I'll do this. Is it the next reporter under Chairman Hatterholt? This is the bill number H that is the largest non-defense bill in our portfolio. So Chairman Hatterholt.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers, and of course, thank you, Chairman Cole. Thank you for your leadership. Here we are on July the 11th, and all 12 bills have been passed out of full committee. I think that's a record. I've been through several appropriations processes over the years, and I cannot recall a time that this early in the year we have finished all the bills. Now, I read, you said, well, how do you remember that? One reason I remember is because my birthday is in July, and I remember sitting in appropriation markups during my birthday. So here, almost 2 weeks before my birthday, we're already finished.
Happy birthday.
It's still a couple weeks on, so it's just really amazing. But of course, under Chairman Cole's leadership, this has been a process that we have kept the trains running through the subcommittees and the full committees. Now, of course, my focus has been on the Labor, Health, and Human Services and Education Bill. It provides the resources for the continued success of critical programs. But at the same time, we remain steadfast to Republicans' commitment to being physically responsible in the entire appropriation process. The bill under our jurisdiction, the Labor, Health, and Human Services and Education Bill, has over a 10% effective reduction in spending through cutting unauthorized programs. This reduction is $36.2 billion below the President's budget request and $23.8 billion below the FY24 effective spending level. One of the things that we're doing in the bill is reforming NIH by reducing the 26 current institutes by half. We're merging those and working closely and trying to streamline the process to make it more effective for the American people. Also, we're calling on the federal employees to return to the office to better serve the American people. It's time that we end a blanket work from home policy, and we look at only granting work from home when it serves the American people best. Our hope, of course, after today is that the Senate will come to the table and help us work to save the taxpayer dollars, but at the same time providing adequate resources for all these crucial programs. And so with that, let me say congratulations to Chairman Cole and all my fellow chairmen that have worked through these committees, through each of their committees, and also every single member of the committee for their commitment and hard work. So thank you very much.
And I think Mr. Simpson's up next.
Thanks, Robert. If I don't get a chance in a couple of weeks, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I want to thank Chairman Cole for actually letting us get a couple hours sleep last night. And a couple hours the night before. Pretty soon it's going to add up, and we're going to actually be caught up on our sleep. But thank you all for being here today. I'm Mike Simpson, Congressman from Idaho, and Chairman of the Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies Subcommittee. You know, reducing spending is never easy as expanding spending. And we knew that would be the case. We knew we would have to make some tough choices in these bills. I'm pleased with what we've been able to do in the Interior Appropriation Bill. There are 3 accounts in our bill which drove spending, which needed to be increased in spending. One of them is in Indian country with Indian Health Services, Indian Justice, and education. Those were substantially increased in our bill, over $1 billion, because of the Supreme Court decision, which I happen to agree with. But those accounts had to be increased. The other one is making permanent the wildfire fighting pay. That was increased. That cost us $330 million to make that a permanent deal. And then we also had to increase to fully fund tilt by $85 million. So once you've increased those accounts, that means the rest of the accounts had to be reduced some, more than they normally would be. Even some of the accounts that I really like, we had to reduce. That's making choices. That's what we had to do. So while reducing unnecessary federal spending or making priorities, I'm pleased that we encourage energy independence in this bill. We expand access to domestic resource production, help reduce energy costs, protect American jobs, and ensure that we continue to access our public lands to recreate, to hunt, and to develop our natural resources. I think this is a good bill. It's a tough bill, but this is the first step in trying to get our job done. So I appreciate everyone on our committee staying together over the last 2 nights particularly to get all these done, but it is a tremendous job that Chairman Cole has done in getting these appropriation bills as far as we have so far, and now we'll try to get the rest of them across the floor when our leadership gives us time to get on for it. So thank you all for being here. I guess thank you.
Well, normally Judge Carter would be next. He was ill last night. He was with us most of the evening. He had to go home. So we pushed him pretty hard. So next up will be Chairman Gale.
The one with the biggest budget.
The one that, the most money,
Yes.
the favorite child.
We need more. I want to thank Chairman Cole. Obviously, passing all 12 appropriation bills is not an easy task, but certainly doing it on the schedule that we've had to move under is shows great leadership. I appreciate it very much. I'm Ken Calvert. I chair the Defense Appropriations Committee. This is something that we must do. Time is not on our side. China is planning, it's not a secret, to invade Taiwan or to get possession of Taiwan by 2/27 or sooner, if they can possibly do so. Russia continues its assault in Ukraine. Israel is literally fighting for its survival every single day. And the only way that we can prevent further aggression is to field and operate capability and demonstrate America's military advantage. The Defense Appropriation Bill provides $833 billion to do just that. We provide no blank checks. We went through the bill, cut $18 billion in unnecessary and unjustified expense. The Defense Bill prioritizes the fight against China by increasing investments in 5th and 6th generation platforms, procuring deliverable capability, prohibiting this investment of combat assets, and prioritizes support, obviously, for Taiwan. It continues investments in reawakening the defense innovation in this country, providing over $1.3 billion to the Defense Innovation Unit and related efforts. Our asymmetric in America is innovation and entrepreneurs, and this bill unleashes that potential. The bill optimizes the Pentagon's civilian workforces, advances 21st century business practices. It enhances the department's role in countering the fentanyl crisis with $1.14 billion for counter-drug programs, and it focuses DoD on the warfighting mission. Most importantly, this bill supports our service members and their families with a 4.5% pay increase across the board. It also has a long overdue additional 15% pay raise for our junior enlisted service members, which they need desperately. This bill procures where we can, trains where we must, invest in capabilities. Will make our adversaries wake up every day and say, today is not the day to provoke the United States of America. With that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mario will give the large up next, and I have to use this line. When we put together the bill and I was reading it, there's a very famous figure in late Roman Republic history named Sulla. On his tombstone, he had the slogan written, "No better friend, no worse enemy." That's what Mario does at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, once again, the Republican House is leading, and the Appropriations Appropriations Committee is leading the Republican House. And that is due to the leadership of our chairman, Chairman Cole, and again, honored that you would allow me to preside over this really, really important subcommittee. No secret, what this bill does, it reestablishes American leadership where it has been frankly absent because of the Biden administration. And I've said this before, State Foreign Operations Bill, what it does is the following. If you are a friend and an ally of the United States, this bill supports you. But if you're an adversary or you're in cahoots with the adversaries of the United States, you ain't gonna like this bill one bit. It builds on the policy wins of the fiscal year 24 enacted bill. Policy wins that a lot of people said were never gonna happen. We remember reading all about that. And it does so by, for example, eliminating wasteful spending, eliminates funding for the UN general budget. Because of the position that we were in because of this bill in fiscal year 24, we got unprecedented accountability, for example, for the UN. But we also got other things, which were also included in this bill. We eliminated, prohibited the funding for UNRWA, which I don't have to describe. And the UN Commission, again, of Inquiry against Israel, among others. This bill also reigns in anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias at the UN. And it does so while supporting Israel to the fullest, including 100% of the funding for the MOU. It prohibits funding for programs that facilitate or encourage irresponsible and illegal migration towards the United States southern border. It prohibits funding and policies that are hurtful, and we prioritize funding for programs that are helpful, including to the Dean of the House, focusing on that killer that is fentanyl that has killed so many of our young Americans. So here's the bottom line. This bill does better and more for our national security interests and for our allies, Mr. Chairman, while spending a hell of a lot less taxpayer money. I'm proud of this bill, I'm proud of my colleagues, and I'm grateful, Mr. Chairman, that you would allow me to lead this subcommittee.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Womack, what bill do we have?
Thank you. I want to associate myself with the remarks of my fellow Cardinals who have bragged on our chairman. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that we have brought respect back to the appropriations process. When you consider the fact that this is the 11th day of July, as Mr. Haddle said earlier, and we have now completed the markups on all 12 of our appropriation bills through committee, and a third of those across the floor of the House, with others to come soon, is a departure from the norm over the last 14 years I've been in Congress, and certainly over the FY24 situation that we all endured. And I credit Chairman Cole for establishing a very, very challenging calendar to get this work finished. And last night, after the 10 o'clock hour, we were finally there. I think it's also important to recognize our staff, the respective professional staffs, personal staffs. These folks have burned a lot of midnight oil trying to help us shepherd this process along. And these are truly the unsung heroes of this appropriations process, and I am truly grateful for all of them. Now, the transportation, housing, and urban in this particular account, these particular accounts, in fact, $90.4-ish billion, and it goes without saying that we prioritized a handful of things as we went through the process. One, improving transportation safety. Two, supporting housing needs for our truly most vulnerable. And three, cutting wasteful spending. This bill is down about 7% over the enacted 24 level. And so we have accomplished, I think, all three. As I said, we prioritize safety of transit systems every American relies on, roads, highways, bridges, our railroads, seas, and skies. We have a few pending issues out there, not the least of which is the Key Bridge that we will eventually have to deal with, but this is not the vehicle with which to be able to do that, but we have that on our mind. We maintain affordable and safe housing for the vulnerable, the elderly, the disabled, our veterans. And then we protect taxpayers, truckers, consumers from the left's hyper-regulatory agenda, over-the-top spending, and increasing threats from our pacing adversaries around the globe. So I'm grateful that here on the 11th day of July, we are now finished in committee. But I think this committee and these cardinals here and our chairman are clear-eyed about the choppy waters we face going forward. We are in divided government. There are going to be differences within our conference and within the Congress as a whole. We will eventually have to negotiate with our counterparts in the Senate. But this is a very good step forward, and I think sets the pace for the appropriations process. And as I said earlier, bringing back respect to the process that is one of our fundamental duties, and that is to fund the discretionary budget of the U.S. government. And I thank Chairman Cole for the opportunity to serve on this subcommittee and to join my fellow cardinals on this momentous day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Third best chairman.
Chuck Blackman is up next, and you guys should pay respect. He's the most powerful guy in the room because he's in charge of the nuclear arsenal of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Chairman Cole for the privilege of chairing the Energy and Water Subcommittee of Appropriations, but very briefly, in a macro sense, what do we see? We see appropriations. When I came to Congress in 2011, one of my goals was to get on the Appropriations Committee. What a wonderful committee this is. And today we stand right here in the United States Capitol talking about the appropriations process. Chairman Cole, your leadership, your stewardship of this committee, it could not have been better at a time when we need this. The American people are looking to us right now to get our work done, to complete all 12 bills in the time and the way that we did this. And if I may digress a bit, my fellow cardinals, there are 12 bills. These are the subcommittee chairmen have done. If you've been watching the process, they've been articulate, they've been prepared, they've treated our adversaries in the room who have a completely different view many times with respect. We have gotten through the process. So I've never been more proud and thankful to be an appropriator, Mr. Chairman. If I may, in a micro sense, I am particularly fond of the Energy and Water bill. I chair that subcommittee. It funds the Department of Energy. And yes, Mr. Chairman, that has the nation's procurement, the production and procurement of our nuclear arsenal, critically important. It also has new nuclear on the civil side. And I'm particularly pleased that in this bill, we have kept active 3 demonstration projects so that our nation can continue to compete in the civil nuclear space. What does that mean? Chairman Diaz-Balart and Chairman Cole and I have just gotten back from Eastern Europe. What are they telling us? We want American nuclear technology. We don't want the Russians. We don't want the Chinese. We think that with American ingenuity, we can actually have the best product. This bill fully funds that. Army Corps of Engineers fully funds so many projects. There's 435 members in our House. Probably everyone has an Army Corps project, critically important. And then last but not least, the Bureau of Reclamation. But in closing, I thank my fellow colleagues, our cardinals. I thank the chairman. And really, I thank the American people for paying attention to what we're doing. We desperately need a win for the American people. It's the Appropriations Committee that is going to deliver that in the House. Mr. Chairman, I thank you. And now I recognize my dear friend from the great state of Ohio, Chairman David Joyce.
I'm so dear to get it off. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Chairman Cole, for this opportunity to get our bills done in such a timely fashion. You're well, first gentleman I ever met when I got here, and I certainly, as I'm sure the rest of the committee chairman here appreciate your guidance and your wisdom as we move through this project together. And together, all of us in the subcommittee chairs have been good stewards of the taxpayer money. We want to ensure that the American people, that they understand the agencies that are under our jurisdiction are not wasting money by supporting bad policies that fail to achieve the desired outcomes. That is what we certainly did in the financial services and general government bill by making cuts to inefficient programs. This includes cutting funds for dozens of overly burdensome regulatory actions that are like prohibiting the FCC from regulating broadband rates, like the FTC from controlling how everyday Americans purchase a car, and how the IRS has unfairly targeted hardworking Americans. On the other hand, we fund critical programs to maintain the integrity of our financial institutions and support the judicial branch, target opioid abuse, and spur small business growth. With the leadership of Chairman Cole and his other subcommittee chairs and the members of my committee, we were able to successfully pass this bill out of committee. I encourage my colleagues in the House to join us in support of all 12 of these bills, and I look forward to working with all of them on making sure that comes to fruition. And I will now pass it on to my friend, Congressman Harris.
The last bill across the line last night.
Thank you very much. Bringing up the rear this morning, just like we did last night. Working late. But look, the American people, that's what they expect us to do. They expect us here to come to Washington and get the people's job done, and that's exactly what we did yesterday. I want to begin by thanking Chairman Cole for holding the press conference, for getting the job done, and for the opportunity to say a few words about the Agricultural Appropriations Bill. Clearly this year, as Americans continue to struggle with inflation driven by the uncontrolled spending of the Biden administration, the Appropriations Committee used our constitutional responsibility wisely by first rejecting the laundry list of woke and wasteful spending requests in the President's unrealistic budget, and then by funding the key programs and agencies that improve the quality of life for Americans. As we all know, Americans depend upon our farms for food, clothing, and millions of jobs. And the bill protects farmers and livestock producers from unnecessary and harmful federal regulations that hurt the ability to feed America. It also touches the lives of Americans daily, as we all depend upon a safe food and drug supply overseen by both the Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration. The bill, however, recognizes that Americans are struggling with inflation, and so this bill takes the same approach American families take every day. They must do more with less under the Biden economy. Overall spending in the bill does decrease by 1% from fiscal year 24. But by targeting funding toward core programs that help America's farmers, ranchers, and rural communities, this bill eliminates the wasteful inflationary spending proposed in the President's budget. I look forward to its final passage on the House floor.
Why don't you stay up here? I've got all the cardinals to come up, and then we'll open up any questions that you're interested in, any particular area you want. Let me just end by saying how proud I am of each of these gentlemen and the committees they ran. And, you know, in the committee process, there's no rules committee to protect you. So any amendments in order, any tough questions can be asked. The people on the other side can bring up anything they want. That's the way it should be. But these guys got us through the process and have positioned us now as a conference to move bills on the floor whenever the majority leader and the whip think it's appropriate. And frankly, we could go to conference now. We literally, once you pass them out of committee, we can sit down with our counterparts in the United States Senate when they're ready to do so, and start the process of arriving what ultimately will be a bipartisan product. With that, open for questions, and then I'll just call Ray.
Mr. Cole, it looks very likely President Trump will be reelected. Is there any plan, if he does win the election, to kick the appropriations process into next year, or do you want to finish
I'll
this
offer
up?
my personal opinion, but believe me, at the end of the day, we'll do, assuming that President Trump is the next president, we'll do what he asks us to do. You know, it's pretty simple. I personally think you should finish the bills, if you possibly can, by the end of the fiscal year. That's very unlikely. That's not going to occur. With the election right around the corner, probably shouldn't occur. We should wait for the American people to make a decision. But I would like to get them done by the end of the calendar year. I don't think it's fair to the next Congress for us to kick our work there. We're going to have a lot of new members that shouldn't have to deal with stuff that they've had no part of growing up. We may well have a new president. If we do, that his people won't be in place. We will be dumping on him to work with the last administration and the last Congress should have done. I don't think that's a good idea. Judge Carter, come on out. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's all right. Glad you're here. Again, in the end, I think the winner of the election makes the decision. You want to get the work done before the end of the calendar year, or you want to kick it into next year. A lot of people think if it's next year, you'll be in a stronger position because maybe you'll have the presidency, the Senate, and the House. I just always remind people, remember there's something called a filibuster in the United States Senate. So the idea you're going to have your way, you're not. You still have to sit down and negotiate a bipartisan product. Nobody's going to get to 60 over there. So that's my view, though, but I'll accept the view of the next president, particularly if it's Donald Trump, and we'll go from there.
Just to follow up on that, President Trump has talked about using impoundment in order to seize control of the appropriations process. Do you think that's an appropriate way to deal with it?
It is an appropriate tool under the Constitution of the United States. So it's something, past presidents have done. It's not unprecedented at all, but you also have to recognize when you use it, you're going to be in negotiation with Congress. And Congress, in the end, does control the purse strings. There's no question about that in the Constitution either. So you need to think twice before you upset the apple cart that when they've arrived at a compromise situation. I'm confident if the president is Donald Trump, frankly, will probably control the Senate, will probably control the House. And so he's going to get the very best product we can give him. If he wants to come back and do something else, that's within his purview. But again, our job will be working with him, not being in an adversarial position with him.
Thank you very much, Chairman Cole, and to your colleagues. When Speaker Johnson became the Speaker of the House, he vowed that the House would pass all 12 appropriations bills before the August recess this year, or you would not break for the August recess. Is that still a commitment that you're willing to
I
make?
wouldn't presume to speak for the Speaker. I don't recall him saying it quite that way. But we've done our part in that process, which is all the bills are out of committee. I'm really pleased with our leadership. And again, they're operating with a much narrower majority on the floor than we are. And we have difficulty sometimes just because people have conflicts, people get ill, what happened, whatever happens. And so the fact they've already got a 4 across the floor, we've got a 5th on the floor today, that's pretty very well done. We'll just see what happens.
And just on the subject of pushing it to the end of the year, if you do that, are you not setting yourself up for an omnibus bill of thousands of pages that your conference as opposed to the boss?
We don't get to make. I would prefer not to do it. I know the speakers worked hard to avoid it. We did not do that when we passed the bills in March. He broke them into 2, and he was under, he had just become speaker. He had an array of issues in front of him. I thought he did an incredible job. Again, you can't get all the way back to regular order immediately, but we're moving that way step by step under Speaker Johnson. And certainly this committee has dealt with all of its bills individually, gotten them all across the committee floor individually. And, again, that's where we hope we would end up. But we're not the Olympic players in the process. The Senate's going to be involved, the President's going to be involved, the leadership of both parties is going to be involved. If you left the world to appropriators, I'm sure it would all work out well. But unfortunately, the Constitution doesn't say that. So there are other people that will have something to say about it. But we've done our job. As a committee, we've done what we were supposed to do. We presented the bills to our leadership. They now have the decision to make. When do they go across the floor? How do they cross the floor? And eventually, we'll have to deal with the Senate and the administration process. Yeah.
With respect to kind of what you just brought up, that the process isn't entirely in your hands, how would you expect the negotiations going forward to look different from years past? I mean, do you expect the Cardinals to play a heightened role there individually given the separate bills?
Look, I'm a classic Republican. The further you push down the decision, the better off you are. So I would expect each one of these Cardinals to handle the negotiation for their respective bills. Nobody knows the facts better than Ken Keller. Nobody knows, frankly, nobody knows anything better than Al Rogers. I don't know commerce, justice, and science better than him. So, it's a mistake to let people that haven't worked to prepare the bills negotiate the final product. Each one of these folks up here knows what's important in their bill better than anybody else. And each one of them is better equipped. So I would hope when we negotiate, and by the way, I've got a lot of respect for their Senate counterparts who I've worked with quite a few of them over the years. They know their bills better. So put the people that have actually written the bills, wrestle with the issues in the room together, and you'd be surprised how much better the product will be and how much quicker the process will work out. Yeah.
What is your reaction to the Warren Collins, the Washington spending deal, and do you have any appetite to use Washington spending to go over the caps?
to get more defense money?
Well, and look, we operated within the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that's the law. And that's what we were charged to do by our speaker and our leadership. I think it was the right decision. Side deals don't help me much because they don't have the force of law. So we operate within it. Now, if there's gonna be a negotiation on a different top line, that's fine. We'll work with the number we're given. I mean, all of us here, I know particularly Mr. Calvert, you made your remark, we'd like a little bit more money. Yeah, he's like the kid in Oliver. More, please. I mean, all I ever hear, I go. But the reality is, I agree with you on that. I do think we need more. But we're gonna operate within what the law specifies, and we're gonna trust our leadership, working with the Senate and working with the President, to give us whatever, if there's any adjustment or change, we'll go from there. But these guys, again, better, if there is more money, I trust them in their respective areas to know what to do with it. So I think the negotiation ought to come back to the people that actually do the work, do the hearings, and understand the subject. Yeah.
Give me a little bit more insight on how you guys are able to do this, because I think if you went to any one of your districts and you suggested, hey, we're gonna do this or get it done before the August recess, I think a lot of constituents would laugh at you guys because they understand how you guys operate in terms of Congress, not you guys.
Our constituents trust us all, you guys laugh at us. Our constituents are pretty good. Look, these are really, one of the reasons I wanted each one of them to come up here and speak is it's a pretty impressive group. They know what they're talking about. They do the hearings, they do the work, and they've done it year after year in some cases. And we don't, that's who you want handling these issues, the people that actually know the topic. And frankly, they know who their counterparts are. They know the Democrats across the table. We have enormous respect for them. I worked with Rosa DeLaura, Labor Aids, for 8 years together. We know one another, and we normally were able to produce a bill that we would start out in different places. That's the way we are now. Right now, the Democrats are in a different place than us. That's exactly what they should be. And they're not gonna negotiate much with us until their big brother shows up. And their big brother is the administration and the United States Senate. They have a majority of one and control of the other. I wouldn't be talking to us right now. So I get where they're at, but what we have to do is have an initial negotiating position to get it done. I think if you listen to these guys talk, you'll know why their constituents send them back here year after year, because they know their business, and they know how to get stuff done in Congress. Anything else? Yeah.
If it does go into next year for some final decisions on this, how would you expect that to impact the possible need for another round of Ukraine aid?
I don't know. Again, we have to, there's actually probably people up here that know this a lot better than I do. I certainly trust Ken Calvin to know this better than I do. But again, better to get your work done now. That's actually a separate subject. It's a supplemental appropriations outside the normal process for the most part. It's an emergency. Full disclosure, I've been very supportive of Ukrainian aid. Will continue to be very supportive. Other people have different opinions. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way Congress is supposed to work. But at the end of the day, if you want to get these things done, get these things done now. Then we won't have to worry about it next year. The new president will not know the government's funded through September 30th. I think one of the worst things you can do to the new president is put him in office and say, hey, by the way, you got about 3 weeks or the government shuts down, or whatever it's going to be, or 6 weeks. That's not fair. He does not have an approved OMB director. He doesn't have his people in place. He's walking into a negotiation that he did not have an opportunity. We did that to President Trump in 2017. I think we as a Republican Congress did him a great disservice. We should have gotten our business done in December of 2016, where he could have started off with a runway in front of the new Congress. That, again, my view, others have a different view, that's fair. Yeah.
I have a question for Mr.
Well, let me go all the way back here. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you, Chairman Cole. I'm just curious, this has been a much smoother process than it was this time last year. What would you attribute to that? Is it the new speaker? Is it you?
Well,
what's
these
different?
speakers been a big help. Let's be real here. Mike Johnson showed up with a very difficult set of problems in front of him. He had to keep the government open. He did. He had to renegotiate the top line. He did. He had to get all the appropriations bills done. He did. He had to handle FISA, which is not a classic conservative Republican. He actually had divisions on each side, very unusual, very important security of the country. He got it done. And finally, he got the Ukrainian aid package and Israeli aid package and the Western Pacific all across the line. That's a pretty extraordinary bunch of achievements in about 160 days. So I give him the credit. The other people I give credit to are all up here. Again, it's working smoother because we're just letting them do their jobs. And if you let the appropriations committee operate the way it was designed to operate, and you trust the people who have the knowledge base on these committees, then you're going to do pretty well. Please direct some of these questions elsewhere. Yeah.
I'll direct it to Mr. Womack and Mr. Harris. The administration set up a $4 billion supplemental request for the Baltimore Bridge situation. What's the status of that? Are you guys planning to move that or wait until the end of the year?
It's a supplemental request, as I said in my opening remarks, the vehicle by which the Key Bridge and any other disasters are handled is going to be outside of the process that we have just been through. So we will evaluate that and consider it on its merits. That'll be a full-throated discussion across the breadth and width of Congress. And but it's obvious that there's going to be a federal responsibility there, which is to be determined exactly how much that will be. I'm also of the belief that the time to deal with it will be sooner than later because it's not going to become less expensive if we stretch this thing out over time. Inflationary spirals, those kind of things are going to play a role in it. And I think the sooner the better we can deal with any kind of supplemental along this remark. And before I step back, I just want to say one other thing. I think Mr. Cole has done a masterful job this morning in answering the questions and kind of setting the expectations for where we are. There is one more looming issue out there that I think adds some credence as to why it's important to get our work done before the end of this calendar year. That's the debt ceiling. There's going to be a discussion and a potential fight over the debt ceiling that will happen sooner than later in the next calendar year. And the fewer things that we can put on the backs of a potential new administration and a new Congress, I think.
Go ahead.
If I could follow up on the debt ceiling point, given the House Republican decision to go under the side deal limit and the Senate moving for higher numbers, what are the takeaways for the spending levels set in that last debt limit? Is that seen as a success or a failure? And what lessons would you take toward the next debt limit negotiations coming up next year?
Come on, Tom, don't do it now. He's got more debt ceilings than anybody else here. Chairman, you have any thoughts? Smart guy. Look, we've operated within the law. A lot of members in our conference didn't know anything about any side deals when they were asked to vote on the law. They voted on what was in front of them. If you remember, there was a Democrat who voted against it because not everything that was in the deal was in the law. They were probably right to do so. I will add this to my Democratic friends. If you cut a deal with the speaker, maybe you shouldn't cooperate in throwing that speaker out and then complain about the deal you cut with him isn't being enforced. That was probably a huge mistake. If you like the McCarthy numbers, you should have kept Kevin McCarthy as speakers. We had 8 people that didn't want to. They had 300 or 200 and some odd that didn't want to. That's kind of on them. When you throw out the person, you can't holler about the deal. It's one of the reasons why we went back to what's in the law. That's what every person in Congress, the substantial majorities on both sides, voted for, what they saw in front of them. If Congress wants to change that, and the Senate looks like they do, I'll leave that in the hands of our leadership. And we don't decide what the top line number is. That's not a decision any of us get to make. If we go through regular order, a budget committee will decide that, will assign us the 302A, and then that's when we get into the mix. We get to decide what the distribution is between our various subcommittees and operate from there. So on the debt ceiling question, going to have to be dealt with, but we'll have a voice in it. We'll get to vote on it, but we don't decide. And so when that decision is made and when the decision above our level is made, we will operate within the number we're given. That's about all I can tell you. Because we don't get to make that call.
Sorry, I brought that up, by the way.
Does anyone think that more years of statutory spending caps would be a good idea? Is that good policy to push for in any future
Well,
negotiations?
it's reasonable policy when you're in we have a real problem here. I mean, we're running a $1.9 trillion deficit this year, and people want to act like we can just ignore it indefinitely. We can't. Now, our biggest problem is collectively, we're only 28% of the budget. We're the operational part of the budget. Over half of that is calculus, is defense. So if you really want to deal with the budget thing, sooner or later, you're going to have to get serious about mandatory spending. That's where it's at. But we cannot balance the budget on the back of discretionary budget. You could literally eliminate everything that all these people are in charge of. You'd still be running a budget deficit. So they're not the problem. We actually held, most people don't realize this, we go back and look at fiscal year 2010 to fiscal year 2019, this committee, mostly under Chairman Ronald's leadership, held spending flat for a decade. We were spending less money in fiscal year 2019 on defense than we were in 2010, less money than we were on non-defense in 2009. But what happened? Entitlement spending went from 1.9 to $3.2 trillion. And nobody dealt with that then, and they should have dealt with it then. And I know Speaker Boehner tried to deal with it. There was all kinds of efforts, a grand bargain for the Obama administration. It didn't happen. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but that's where the issue is. So complaining about spending to these people who demonstrated they can hold it flat, they'll live within the number they're given, you're complaining to the wrong people. I mean, look in the mirror until Congress wants to get serious about doing it, and that means an administration that wants to get serious. I don't have any doubt we have people that want to get serious about that issue, but the administration has to be serious about it. It's going to take presidential leadership, but that's where the issue's at, not in the appropriations process. We've demonstrated, give us a number, look at the number. Anything else? Thank you guys for coming, appreciate it very much. Hang around if you want to really dig into Indian country, since we forgot, God knows what poor animals have to talk about.
I don't know.